welcome to Housing TV News at the top of the hour, coming to you from our studios here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Mary Agiobo. Our top stories. Federal government ends pre-retirement leave practice. Cross River State signs $42 million deal to revive water supply. Representatives to probe housing investment fund operations. In the foreign scene, deadly Russian strikes hit Ukrainian cities. Now the news in details. The federal government has directed all ministries, departments and agencies to discontinue the practice of placing civil servants on a mandatory 3-month pre-retirement leave, clarifying that such a provision does not exist under the public service rules. The directive issued by the head of the civil service of the Federation states that officers approaching retirement are only required to provide 3 months' notice of retirement, attend approved pre-retirement workshops and complete necessary documentation relating to pension and service records. Government explained that retiring officers remain active members of the public service throughout the notice period and are expected to continue performing their official responsibilities unless they are attending authorized retirement programs or have been granted leave in accordance with existing regulations. The new directive is expected to affect thousands of public servants nationwide and is aimed at promoting consistency across government institutions. Authorities believe the measure will improve service delivery by allowing experienced officers to continue contributing their expertise until their official retirement dates while assuring a smoother transition into retirement. And now the Cross River State government has signed a $42 million public-private partnership agreement aimed at revitalizing the state's water infrastructure and restoring access to clean and potable water for residents. The landmark partnership is expected to breathe new life into the state-owned water board, which has struggled for years with aging facilities, inadequate investment, and declining service delivery. Government officials described the agreement as a major step toward ending more than a decade of water supply challenges experienced by communities across the state. Under the arrangement, private sector investment will be deployed to rehabilitate existing infrastructure, improve operational efficiency, and expand water distribution networks. Authorities believe the project will significantly increase access to safe drinking water while supporting public health, environmental sustainability, and economic growth. Officials said the initiative has already attracted interest from both local and international investors, demonstrating confidence in the project's viability. With implementation expected to begin soon, the state government said the partnership marks a new chapter in efforts to provide reliable water services and improve the quality of life for residents. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has intensified nationwide surveillance measures for Ebola virus disease, directing health workers to closely monitor travelers arriving from countries currently experiencing outbreaks of the deadly disease. Under updated public health guidelines, the agency has instructed healthcare facilities and disease surveillance officers across the country to immediately investigate any traveler who develops symptoms associated with Ebola within 21 days of arriving from affected countries. The move forms part of efforts to prevent a possible importation of the virus into Nigeria and strengthen the country's emergency preparedness framework. According to NCDC, individuals who experience a sudden fever alongside symptoms such as severe headache, fatigue, loss of appetite, muscle pain, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, breathing difficulties, or unexplained bleeding after recent travel to outbreak zones should be treated as suspected cases and reported without delay. Health authorities said the 21-day monitoring period corresponds with the known incubation period of the Ebola virus, during which infected individuals may begin to show symptoms. The agency also warned that persons who have had contact with confirmed or suspected Ebola patients, as well as those suspected to infect animals, bushmeat or animal body fluids, remain at heightened risk of infection. While no Ebola case has been reported in Nigeria, the NCDC says the enhanced surveillance measures are necessary to safeguard public health, ensure early detection, and strengthen the country's capacity to respond swiftly to any potential outbreak. And now teachers, residents, and civil society groups have intensified calls for stronger security measures following a series of school-related abductions that have sparked protests across several states. In Borno State, community leaders and residents expressed concern over what they describe as inadequate attention to the abduction of dozens of pupils from a basic school in Askira, Uba local government area. They urged the federal government to intensify rescue efforts and ensure that all victims held in captivity are safely returned to their families. Meanwhile, in Oyo State, public school teachers embarked on a peaceful protest, leading to the closure of schools in some areas as they demanded urgent action to secure the release of abducted students and teachers. Civil society groups also joined demonstrations calling for improved protection of educational institutions and stronger measures to curb rising insecurity. Similar concerns are, however, echoed in Ogun State, where residents staged protests over worsening security challenges and the growing threat of kidnappings. Demonstrators warned that persistent attacks on schools and communities are creating fear among citizens, disrupting education and undermining confidence in public safety. They called on security agencies to strengthen surveillance and response mechanisms to prevent future incidents. And now, workers of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission have suspended their nationwide industrial action just hours after commencing the strike over welfare and regulatory concerns. The strike, led by petroleum sector workers, disrupted administrative activities at the Commission's headquarters and field offices, raising concerns about the potential impact on regulatory operations within Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Essential operational staff, however, remained on duty to ensure critical services continued uninterrupted. At the heart of the dispute were concerns over revenue allocation arrangements and their impact on the Commission's financial capacity. Workers, however, argued that the current structure limits the agency's ability to effectively regulate upstream petroleum activities and carry out its statutory responsibilities. The suspension follows renewed engagement between management and labor representatives aimed at addressing the outstanding issues. Industry stakeholders have welcomed the development, noting that prolonged disruptions could affect regulatory approvals, investor confidence, and broader efforts to sustain growth in the nation's energy sector. And finally, from the local scene, the Executive Secretary of the Power and Energy Consumer Advocates of Nigeria, PEA, has attributed the persistent challenges in Nigeria's electricity sector to corruption and what he described as shortcomings in the implementation of power sector reforms. Speaking on Good Morning Africa during a discussion on Nigeria's power sector and recurring blackout challenges, Uket Obonga said electricity consumptions across the country has increased significantly over the years, reflecting growing demand from households, businesses, and industries. He, however, noted that despite this rise in demand, the sector continues to struggle with inefficiencies that have limited the delivery of stable and reliable power supply to consumers. Obonga argued that power outages were less frequent in previous years and were often managed through planned and communicated service interruptions. According to him, the current situation, characterized by repeated blackouts and supply instability, is largely the result of systemic corruption and weak institutional practices that have hindered the growth and development.
Has been the desire for the federal government, the various governments at the center, to make electricity available to Nigerians. But we've not really gotten it right, and it is even worse now than it was before. because if you look at what is being generated compared to the population of Nigeria and what was generated then, and you look at the what we call kilowatt per capita, that's what the average Nigerian consumes per day in electricity, is lower now than it was before. The problems that led to where we are, I have always said it is corruption. Corruption. Now, in those days, it was even better in those days, because growing up in this country, before NEPA would take light, there will be an outage. Say today is what, 28? Before they will be outage May 28. They begin the announcement at the beginning of the month. Wow. At the beginning of the month. And as children of the Civil War, those of us, our parents were carrying to run the Civil War, we were the little children. I am aware that despite the shooting, the bombing in the old eastern region, the cities that had electricity, there was no blink.
We take a pause here, and up next, a news story from the build sector. Do stay with us.
Are you getting ready for another big one? The largest housing show in Africa. 2 decades of relentless exhibition and conference. The 20th edition of the Africa International Housing Show, happening from the 13th to 18th of July 2026 at the prestigious Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja, Nigeria. This premier event is Africa's largest housing and construction expo, attracting over 50,000 attendees in Africa and beyond, thereby giving room for developers, construction giants, financiers, home interiors, mortgage and microfinance banks, drawing from about 21 different countries of the world. Get ready to be part of history.
You're still watching Housing TV News, and now to the build sector. The Minister of Housing and Urban Development has uncovered significant discrepancies in progress reports relating to a federal housing project in Katsina State after an unscheduled inspection of the site. According to findings from the visit, only about 130 housing units were physically completed, despite official reports indicating that 250 units had been delivered. The discovery has raised concerns about project monitoring, reporting standards, and contractor performance. The inspection also revealed delays in infrastructure development and signs of deterioration in some completed structures, prompting questions about construction quality and adherence to contractual obligations. The minister directed officials to conduct a comprehensive audit of the project, including details of contractors, funding disbursements, and actual levels of completion. Government says the exercise forms part of efforts to ensure accountability and transparency in the implementation of housing programs under the Renewed Hope initiative. Authorities have pledged to deploy technical teams to verify ongoing work and ensure the housing units are completed to acceptable standards before allocation to beneficiaries. And now the House of Representatives Committee on Housing and Habitat has commenced plans to investigate the operations of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund, a key federal initiative designed to expand access to affordable housing. Lawmakers said the investigation is part of their oversight responsibility and will focus on the administration, performance, and implementation of the housing finance program. The management team of the fund is expected to appear before the committee to provide detailed explanations on its activities and achievement. The committee plans to examine the governance structure and financing framework, project delivery strategy, and overall impact of the fund on housing development across the country. Particular attention will also be given to concerns raised by stakeholders regarding transparency, accountability, and resource utilization. The probe is, however, expected to provide a clearer assessment of whether the fund is achieving its objectives of supporting affordable home ownership and expanding mortgage access for Nigerians. The outcome may also shape future legislative actions aimed at strengthening housing, finance, and improving the delivery of affordable housing nationwide. Still on the build sector, the Adamawa State Commissioner for Works has expressed satisfaction with the quality and pace of ongoing road construction projects following all inspection of major infrastructure developments in Numan and Yola. During the inspection tour, the Commissioner assessed work progress on key road projects designed to improve transportation, enhance connectivity, and support economic activities across the state. He noted that contractors were adhering to approved specifications and delivering work in line with government expectations. Meanwhile, the project forms part of the state government's broader infrastructure development program aimed at improving access to communities, reducing travel time, and creating a more efficient transportation network. Officials believe the completed roads will facilitate trade, boost investment opportunities, and improve mobility for residents. The Commissioner urged contractors to maintain high professional standards and ensure timely completion of all ongoing projects. However, residents of the affected communities also commended the government's commitment to infrastructure development, expressing optimism that the roads will stimulate economic growth and improve living conditions. And now to the foreign scene. At least 9 people have been killed and dozens injured after Russia launched a massive overnight missile and drone assault on multiple cities across Ukraine, escalating fears of a wider intensification of the conflict. Authorities in Kyiv and Dnipro reported significant casualties as residential buildings, infrastructure facilities, and industrial sites came under attack. Meanwhile, in the Ukrainian capital, emergency responders rushed to rescue operations after high-rise apartment blocks were struck, leaving several residents feared, trapped beneath collapsed structures. Fires and power outages were also reported in several districts, adding to the scale of the destruction. The latest bombardment comes amid growing warnings from Ukrainian officials that Russia may be preparing a new wave of large-scale attacks. President Vladimir Zelensky had earlier urged citizens to remain vigilant and respond promptly to air raid alerts following intelligence reports suggesting heightened military activity by Russian forces. Military authorities also say air defense systems were activated across several regions as explosions echoed through major cities. The renewed attacks underscore the continued volatility of the war and raise fresh concerns about civilian safety, critical infrastructure damage, and the prospects for de-escalation as the conflict enters another challenging phase. And now a former Australian government minister has launched an independent public inquiry into a multi-billion-dollar AUKUS submarine agreement, reigniting debate over one of the country's most expensive defense projects. The review, backed by public donations and civil society groups, will examine the long-term implications of Australia's decision to acquire nuclear-powered submarines under the trilateral security partnership involving Australia, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Organizers say the inquiry is intended to provide greater transparency and public engagement on a project with far-reaching national security and economic implications. Among the key issues to be examined are the financial cost of the program, the management of nuclear waste, Australia's strategic independence, and the broader impact of the deal on regional stability. The review would also assess whether the agreement enhances Australia's security interests and whether the country is likely to receive the submarines within the projected timelines. However, the AUKUS Pact has remained a subject of international attention since its announcement, particularly due to concerns raised by China and other regional observers. While the Australian government maintains that the partnership is vital to national defense and regional security, supporters of the inquiry argue that increased public oversight is necessary for a project of such unprecedented scale and significance. And finally, from the foreign scene, authorities in the United States have launched an extensive investigation after 6 people were killed in a series of shootings believed to be linked to a domestic dispute in the state of Iowa. Police say officers responding to reports of gunfire discovered multiple victims at different locations, including residential properties and a business premises. Investigators later confirmed that the suspected gunman was also found dead from what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Preliminary findings suggest the victims were related to the suspect, prompting law enforcement agencies to treat the incident as a family-related tragedy. Meanwhile, investigators are working to establish the sequence of events and determine the circumstances that led to the deadly attacks. Community leaders have, however, expressed shock and grief over the incident, describing it as one of the most devastating acts of violence in the area in recent years. Authorities have urged residents to remain calm while investigations continue, assuring the public that there is no ongoing threat to community safety. Again, we go on another short break, and when we return, we'll receive stories from the world of business and the world of sports. Please stay tuned.
I'm Debbie Erb. I'm the founder of DLE Advisors, LLC. I just finished a really interesting session talking with the audience here at the International Housing Show. I have attended the show before, and I have to say it's bigger. It's bigger and better than it was 4 years ago. An incredible array of opportunities, companies, and new innovations in the housing space. So it's very exciting to be here. Thank you, Festus Adebayo. He's my guy. It's so well attended, and there's so many people here that I know who are movers and shakers in the industry. So I definitely recommend attending if you possibly can.
This is Housing TV News, and now to the world of business. Nigeria's capital market has recorded a major milestone with the successful implementation of a new T+1 settlement cycle, positioning the country among leading global markets adopting faster and more efficient trading systems. The reform means that securities transactions will now be settled 1 business day after execution, significantly reducing the time required to complete trades. Market regulators and operators say the development is expected to improve efficiency, strengthen investor confidence, and reduce risks associated with delayed settlement. Industry stakeholders describe the transition as a crucial step in modernizing Nigeria's financial markets and aligning them with international best practices. However, they believe the shorter settlement cycle will improve liquidity, enhance market resilience, and create a more attractive investment environment for both domestic and foreign investors. The achievement follows months of collaboration among regulators, exchanges, custodians, depositories, and other market participants. Analysts said the new framework will support capital formation, encourage greater participation in the market, and strengthen Nigeria's competitiveness within the global financial system. Still on business, the Central Bank of Nigeria has unveiled an ambitious strategy aimed at transforming the country's payment ecosystem, expanding financial inclusion and accelerating the adoption of digital transactions nationwide. Under the newly launched Payment System Vision 2028, the Apex Bank is targeting 95% financial inclusion within the next 2 years, a move expected to bring millions of unbanked Nigerians into the formal financial sector. The initiative is designed to make financial services more accessible to underserved groups, including traders, farmers, small business owners, and young people. Meanwhile, the program also seeks to reduce dependence on cash transactions by promoting digital payment channels across markets, transport hubs, and rural communities. Authorities believe wider adoption of electronic payments will improve economic efficiency, enhance transparency, and support broader economic growth. Beyond financial inclusion, the vision places strong emphasis on cybersecurity, fraud prevention, and cross-border payment integration. The central bank says the strategy will strengthen Nigeria's position as a regional leader in digital finance, while supporting trade, investment, and economic opportunities across Africa. Finally, from the world of sports. Fresh transfer speculation has emerged around Nigeria striker Victor Osimhen following reports linking the Super Eagles forward with a potential move to Chelsea Football Club ahead of the new season. The reports surfaced after Nigeria head coach Eric Chell explained that Osimhen was omitted from upcoming international friendly matches due to uncertainties surrounding his club future. The comments sparked widespread discussions across Europe regarding possible transfer negotiations involving the prolific striker. Osimhen has since moved to clarify the situation, insisting that his coach's remarks had been misinterpreted and reaffirmed his commitment and respect for his current club, Galatasaray. Despite the clarification, interest in the Nigerian international remains high among several top European clubs seeking attacking reinforcement. However, the striker continues to enjoy an impressive run of form after another productive season in Turkey, where he played a crucial role in his club, domestic and European campaigns. His performances have, however, reinforced his reputation as one of Africa's most sought-after forwards, ensuring that transfer speculation surrounding his future remains a major talking point ahead of the summer window. The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency and the National Institute for Sports have begun discussions aimed at strengthening safety standards, emergency preparedness and disaster response mechanisms within Nigeria's sports sector. Officials from both organizations met in Lagos to explore areas of collaboration focused on capacity building, training programs and the integration of emergency management practices into sports administration. The proposed partnership is expected to improve safety awareness and emergency response capabilities at sporting venues and institutions. Stakeholders said the initiative comes at a time when the sports industry is expanding and requires stronger systems to manage risks associated with competitions, training activities. That's the size of our package for today, and now a recap of our top stories. Federal government ends pre-retirement leave practice. Cross River State signs $42 million deal to revive water supply. Representatives to probe Housing Investment Fund operations. And on the foreign scene, deadly Russian strikes hit Ukrainian cities. For more news in the housing sector, subscribe to Housing TV Africa on YouTube and follow Housing TV Africa on all social media platforms. Download the Housing TV Africa mobile app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. You can also download the free TV app to follow our updates. I am Mary Agiobo. Bye for now.
Visit Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts on Facebook, Housing TV Africa, on Twitter, Housing TV Africa, Instagram, Housing TV Africa. Join the conversation and keep up with latest housing updates.